Sharon. So my guest today is rather remarkable, incredible, and I'm just going to read the following. Sharon Jessop, like that. Sharon is a wildlife warrior, conservationist, fitness fanatic, ultra-endurance athlete, adventurer, adrenalin junkie, serial entrepreneur, coach and trainer, motivational speaker, and TV show host. But that's not all. You also had a very strong legal background. You were a public prosecutor, almost got that wrong. And so you were in the company of some really challenged individuals, really getting a first-class view of I almost want to say the disease of society, and how far down the tunnel, some people go, or off the path some people go. And I think you were faced, to overlook or review some really hardcore cases. And so life before, the Sharon that we know now was quite intense. And so with that, we didn't really plan this call. I said to her, look, I want to interview you. And she was running and she came back and I was like, we can do it today. And she was like, I'm sweaty. And I said, okay, well, don't worry, hop into the shower. And so here we are. And so my guest, I applaud you for what you do. I think it's amazing, right? And so how was your run?
Hot. And far.
No, it is hot. And 21 kilometers, I mean, my gosh, and so I'm actually dreaming. I'll tell you about my little dream that I have, I'll just start walking with you, instead of the running. So maybe I'll just start walking, and maybe not 21 kilometers, maybe less than that.
Walking is always a good place to start.
Yeah, and so, that's also something that I want to talk to you about at some point, because I know that we chatted and I wanted to collaborate with you, and I know that you're already sort of scheduled your year ahead, and so you've got your itinerary. But I think where I want to start is, let's talk about Sharon as a young girl. What was life like? Tell me.
Free.
Yeah.
Absolutely free. I grew up in a really small town called Fort Beaufort here in the Eastern Cape. And it was amazing because, as kids, we would go and ride our bicycles. We didn't have, we had TVs then, but we were not really that fixated on watching television. We wanted to be outside. We wanted to go and run around and visit friends, and explore new little paths in the field with our bicycles. And that's basically what we did. And I think that with that whole process, and also having fallen in love with running at the age of 5 when I first went to school, which was about 20 years ago, I've always had this tendency to sort of gravitate to the outdoors and just to have that freedom. And obviously, as you grow up and you grow older, you kind of lose your, how can I put this, your true self a little bit. People tell us we have to have a real job. You've got to go study, you've got to find a job, you got to get a house and a car and all of those things. And I think it is actually, and I know probably quite a few people will want to beat me to death right now, but I think it's pretty much overrated.
But I think, we do grow up in a society where there's this massive expectation of you to become something, instead of just being who you would like to be, and then kind of turning that into sort of like your own success story, and doing what you love really, and it'll bring us to the cause, right? It's like your purpose here on earth, instead of like living somebody else's dream, trying to fulfill their shoes or their lost sort of aspirations, as opposed to following our own bliss and our own hearts. And then, I mean, look at what you're doing today, right? Look at what you're doing today.
Absolutely. So I do think I've come the full circle, and I've gone back to that in a way free carefree young girl that used to run wild in the bush around Fort Beaufort. Now I'm just running wild everywhere.
Yeah. And, you know, on that note, it's such a beautiful slogan, like I think logo slogan. And so run wild, right? And run wild for rhinos. And so, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be free and wild in their natural habitat, you know, free from stress, free from the world's worries, free from, you know, harm and death and just like the destruction that we impose, you know, like all this heaviness, you know, that surrounds
Absolutely.
the topic of rhino and rhino horn. And so were you always drawn to wildlife as a child?
Definitely. You know, I've always been fascinated by wild places and beautiful spaces and animals. You know, I can't ever remember ever not loving animals. I remember when I was a teenager, I hid a kitten in my room for 2 weeks because my mother said, you cannot have a kitten. And literally, you know, I had my partner in crime, my dad, and he knew about the kitten, but we hid it for 2 weeks. And by that time, there was no way, you know, we could get rid of the little kitty anymore. So she became a permanent fixture in the house, you know. So I've always been that person that I've been very much into animals and for them to have a voice and for them to not suffer. And I remember a couple of years ago, like we all know, and we've always known about the Rhino Crisis. It's always there in your peripherals,
always,
you know.
There. It's like
always there.
I almost feel like, how is it that not every single person, you know, within South Africa, knowing what we know, and also throughout the globe, right, isn't taking this issue serious?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm also
like I have to answer for that,
because my head was so full of like what I wanted to say now that I actually completely just had to like kind of gather all thoughts and go like, okay, you can't say that now, you can't say that now, okay, and just use the word serious, okay, because it is. If you look at, you know, how far this has gone for us to have one of a species left. So let's say like the 2 last northern rhinos or the last northern rhino, and I always get so emotional when I speak about this, because Earth and Life 365 for me, you know, the reason why I wanted to start it in the beginning, or not, there was a couple of reasons, but one of the species I wanted to start it for was specifically for rhino. And it's just such a difficult topic because you will get the conservationists, you know, and the people who fund, you know, the projects, and then you get the rest who just go, oh, shame that poor rhino, or oh, shame, you know, it's really is a pity, or oh, it's terrible news, you know. And the thing is, it's not just terrible, it's horrific, right?
It is. It has really got to that point where it is horrific.
It is horrific. And you know what my viewpoints are. And so just to give a little bit of feedback, so I go to the World Rhino Day 2021 at the Mantis Group, sort of like Founders Lodge. And you know, so I kind of get there with like dark water ops because they invited me. So I'm sort of like on the sideline, just checking, you know, who everybody is. And I see this woman in tights, and I'm like, I don't really think that's the attire for today. And I had no idea who you were. Okay, so I was like, okay, maybe I'm overdressed. And then I saw, you know, Paul, I think it was Paul. That's his name, right? Yes. Also, and I was like, okay, I'm definitely overdressed. Like I clearly have no knowing and what's going on here. And so, you know, Nikki spoke to me and he was like, no, well, she's so and so and so. And I immediately, like, I couldn't wait. Like I was like, okay, I have to introduce myself to you. I have to have a conversation with you. I have to speak to you. We have to do something. I don't care how, what, when, you know, and because I believe like when we meet people like you and me, you know, it's not every day that you can meet somebody that's actively doing something. And so somebody like you inspire me, you know, to actually want to do more.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And that's really the whole aim with the Run Wild for Rhinos, you know, that I want to inspire normal people to do more. You know, as you know, I do a lot of work the work that I do, the conservation work for the One Land Love It Foundation,
Yeah.
Wayne and Nikki Bolton, they're amazing people. And I just love their motto to
Yeah.
move from caring to doing,
Yeah.
because we all care.
Yeah.
But what are we doing?
Exactly.
You know, and I aim to break it down for people that are feeling so overwhelmed by this crisis that you can say to people, well, you know what, you don't have to run halfway around the world. You know, just repost that post on Facebook. Let's create awareness. You know, my aim for this year, for 2022, is to put the rhino on the red carpet where it belongs. And obviously, and I know we'll have many more discussions about this going forward, but we really need to highlight this issue and bring it, you know, it needs to be pertinent in people's hearts and minds. But I also feel that we've reached the point of rhino poaching fatigue. You know, people don't want to hear about it anymore. So I try and make it fun for people to participate and to do something. And so that really is the aim with Ollie as well, you know, the One Land Love It Foundation.
And so I completely agree with your rhino fatigue, you know, and so when you say to somebody, save the rhino, save the rhino, save the rhino, save the rhino, people are like, okay, now when are they going to get saved? You know, and so I feel like, you know, there was also a lot of organizations that had come into existence and that were kind of like misusing that slogan. And so, you know, where people were donating, that money was misused and not put to good use, and thus ended in sort of like the con and conservation with regards to rhinos, you know.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, there's that almost, and I hear it so much lately, and I see it in people, is like they are tired and exhausted of their own lives, and so they don't even feel inspired to go beyond the call of duty, to go beyond, you know, their what is possible for me as a human being on this planet, you know, what can I do? And that they've kind of given up, you know, because they've given up on themselves, they give up on everything else.
Absolutely.
You know?
And it's sad.
And so the one thing, and I think you can relate to this, is when people say like, you know, what can I do? One person, what can I'm not going to change the world. And I think, what? I think like, oh my gosh, you know, like one person, that's all, like one idea, one plan, you know, and then run with it, right? Literally run with it. And so
absolutely.
To get back to you, and so how did well, I know kind of why, because we had that discussion, right? But like, how did you get into to move from, you know, doing nothing to doing something, and what was that like for you? You know, that kind of like pivot point, that aha moment that you had where you went like, I'm going to do this.
Okay, so for me, and I will never forget this, I watched the documentary Strip. I don't know if you've watched it.
Okay.
And, you know, I really battled through that docu, because it was, you know, the scenes are graphic. And obviously, just prior to that, I interviewed Dr. William Folds. I interviewed Wayne Bolton, because, you know, Wayne cycled 6,000 kilometers, symbolically linking all the sandparks together, you know, in the name of rhino conservation. And I decided, okay, I need to watch this documentary. So I rent it from Amazon, and I sit in my study and I start watching this documentary. I had to stop it 4 times because I was sobbing. I was ugly crying. Then first I had this extreme, immense sadness. I was just overcome by sadness, you know, when that feeling that you're sinking into this bottomless pit. Then I got angry. I got so angry that I thought, if I were to face one of these people, one of these poachers right now, I would kill with my bare hands. And I think that was the point where I thought, you know what, I cannot live with a status quo. I cannot live with myself if I had to turn my back and say, you know what, me as one person, what can I do?
Yeah, exactly.
And I immediately booked a meeting with Wayne and Nikki Bolton. And I said, listen, I want to do this crazy thing. I want to run for rhinos because that's what I do. The two things in life I do really well is talk and run. You know, so why not?
Yeah, combine the two.
Why not?
Yeah,
you know, and why not put those things together and lobby for our rhinos?
Yes.
And I also think with me getting up, sorry, my little dogs are barking, yeah.
Oh, puppy.
Yes, you know, they rule the roost. It's their house. I just have to be so fracked of it.
Yeah. And so you booked the meeting with them. Did they already have the replica of the rhino? Was that already there? Okay.
Yes. So they got the rhino the previous year. Just give me 2 seconds.
I will do so.
And girls.
And so for those who don't know who Ollie is, that's one land lovett. And so what I'll do is I'll post all links in this video description and also on the website and all social media for those who want to know more and find out more about, you know, Ollie. And so, okay, so over to you. And so you meet them, you give them your idea and they think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's how that sort of like union started.
Absolutely, you know, and I think because of my run that I did in 2017, which was for cancer awareness from Cape Town back to Port Elizabeth, you know, Wayne and Nikki sort of knew that I can do these things, I can run, and that my heart is in the right place, because just as I mentioned prior to that, I interviewed Wayne and we spoke a lot about rhinos and rhino conservation and their motivation for moving from caring to doing, you know, and had everything planned. And I was going to do my run from the Komati Point border back to Port Elizabeth. And then we all know what happened in the beginning of 2020.
Oh, yeah, COVID.
We were all in our homes for an extended period of time.
That was when our lives changed. And so,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Gosh.
So I thought, you know, there's no way that I can sit and do nothing. So I organized a few awareness campaigns. I did a 3-hour Facebook Live aerobics marathon, old-fashioned 80s aerobics. Amazing. Encouraged everybody to dress up, you know, send photos, post photos. We probably had about 150 people doing aerobics that day on Facebook.
Yeah, amazing.
And it was all for rhino conservation. So I really try and bring in these fun elements, you know, because I believe there's a couple of universal languages. One of them is music. And the other one is sport. So if we can touch people's lives, their hearts, their minds through music and sport, but the things that they enjoy doing, fun stuff, you will bring them on board. All right.
Yes, and so I believe that as well with music, but music for me, you know, definitely, and also like large gatherings of people that come together. And I think when I founded Earthlight 365, you know, music was kind of like the main thing, right? It's like, how do I get to people? Like, and music for me, I mean, when you go into conservation or you go and research these topics, I mean, it is heavy. It is heavy, you know, especially when you love animals the way that some of us do. It's heavy to know that this is happening on the planet. And music has been like the one tool that has every time put me back onto the map, got me centered, got me motivated, got me moving forward. And so I totally agree with you.
Absolutely. And for me, I love my music, but running is that thing for me, you know. And then also just after, was it this year or the year before? It was this year. So let's backtrack a bit first. Then I thought, you know what, I'm going to do some run for rhinos. And that was during the time period where we were allowed to exercise between 6 in the morning and 9 in the morning. Okay, so 3 hours. And I thought to myself, what can I do in a 3-hour window period? Okay, fine. I can't run a marathon because it takes me more than 3 hours to run a marathon, but I can do a half marathon. And I always maintain Google can be your worst enemy or your best friend. So I started Googling Guinness World Records, and I realized then that I can set a new Guinness World Record by running the most consecutive half marathons for rhino conservation.
Amazing.
So it started off with 75 days, then I went to 86 days, then I went to 101 days, and eventually I did 102 consecutive half marathons, set a new Guinness World Record. And I always maintain, if you want people to sit up and notice the work you're doing, do something stupid or do something epic,
something different, something that's just like, different,
that will make them take notice. And of course, I ended up with, probably on my 101st day, the 31st of December 2020, all right, when we were back in lockdown and we could have 50 people outdoors. I probably had about 250 people in my little street here in Port Elizabeth, and including the mayor.
Yeah,
I had SABC TV here, and it was just an absolute blast, all in the name of rhino conservation. So since then, the community has grown, people have become aware, and people that were running with me actually said to me, you know what, I would not be aware of this crisis, like how bad it actually is, if it wasn't for running with you.
Yeah.
So I use my sport to get the message out there.
Yeah. And it's mind-boggling to, and I discover that every single day. Okay, so we've got 53 million people in South Africa. The rhino it's not new news. This has been going on forever. Right. And yet we still have people that don't know. Okay. And so again, there's a massive miscommunication and also a massive gap between the people that do and the people that don't, and then the media and all the media influence that people have. And so one thing that I've noticed, and this was especially for crowdfunding, was I would go on to crowdfunding campaigns or basically platforms to look at what people are putting their money on. And so, the animal organizations or the people that were gathering money for animals to rescue, specifically, let's say rhinos, okay, weren't generating nearly as much as people that were designing a product or some sort of something, okay, that this design could go into. And I'm talking about millions in difference. And for me, that's a clear sort of like dissonance between, where we put our money and how active, the consciousness, the collective consciousness is with regards to what we spend our money on and who we spend our money on, and I feel like sometimes, we're busy with our projects, and you think, like, you stand in front of people and you talk about, let's say, pangolins or rhinos or lions, and they listen, and you kind of think, okay, I'm kind of losing you. And then a year or 2 years, after that, I actually get an email from them going like, hey, I actually think about you. And it may not like looked like I was listening to you at that time, but I did take notice. And so every time I read an article about a pangolin, I think about you, or every time I think about you, I go and I look for pangolin information, and stuff like that. And so I guess the message from us is, there's no act too great or too small. That every little bit helps, and you will never know until you make a commitment and you actually get off and get up and start doing something. And if you fail, so what? So what?
Absolutely. You get up and you do it again and
do it
again.
And so if we talk about Dr. William Folds, I mean, he's amazing, right? Like the accomplishments that he's had, him and his brother pertaining to, the work that they do. And I mean, I was supposed to meet him last year, but I haven't quite gotten to it. And he was just so busy, right? And so a lot of his time also went into generating the funds for his projects, and again, like, why do we have to beg people to care for our wildlife? And where is our rates and taxes, what is it being spent on in terms of like our wildlife and our natural spaces, and as well as I do that the plastic pollution in PE is out of hand, and how that actually affects our wildlife as well, and also our domestic animals. And so so Sharon, when we say, move from acting to doing. That's the slogan, right? From acting to doing. Is like
move from caring to
from caring to doing. Thank you so very much. Move from caring to doing. But a lot of people care, but they don't do anything.
Yes.
And so, and I know for myself, it's like, I have had people promise high and low, Petro, we're going to join your network, we're going to join this, you know, membership thing, we're going to join this. And I'm like, yeah, great, it's going to be amazing when you join, you know, and I get super stoked and I work until 4 o'clock in the mornings, and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to have all these people, you know, and then maybe 2 join, you know, and so move from caring to doing. And conservation for me goes very hand in hand with money. We need money to do that.
Absolutely. And we don't just need a little bit of money. We
No,
need a lot of money.
No, we need a lot.
A lot.
You know, a lot.
Yes.
A lot. You know, and we don't need to be
Plenty.
spending it on churches and cathedrals and stuff like that. Enough with that nonsense. Okay, we have a beautiful cathedral, which is Earth. We have this beautiful, amazing planet with all these incredible beings that we share the planet with. And what are people paying attention to? You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Why are we not looking after our natural heritage?
Yes.
Why?
Exactly why. And so where, I mean, what happened? That's always what I said, like, what actually happened that people don't want to participate? And I've come to the conclusion that, you know, people aren't celibate. And I said this to Jason McNamara this morning, because I was in an interview with him, and I said to him that it's because people don't care enough about themselves anymore. You know, they don't love themselves. Absolutely. And so they stop caring and loving, you know, externally. And so when we move from caring to doing, okay, there's something really magical that happens, and we inspire people. And so if you take an overview of like your journey since you've started to now, you know, what has been sort of like a milestone or like a highlight for you?
You know, I think for me, the highlight, or because there's been so many,
I know,
is that you never realize that small act that you're doing, how that actually inspires and move others to become more and to be more and to do more. Like I mentioned, and I won't mention names, but I know for a fact there's 2 gentlemen, one from South Africa and one in America, that since I did my 102 consecutive half marathons, have done something similar for different causes.
That's amazing.
The one did it for SADC, and the other one is doing it for also an environmental cause, the American gent, you know, and raising funds, raising awareness, which is fantastic. And then to hear people say that, you know what, I've never really thought about the rhinos before, but now I realize there's so much I can do as a person. And people that come to me and say, you know, you've inspired me. I want to do something amazing. I want to be part of this. What can I do? How can I help? You know, so I'm not, for some people, I actively solicit them and I actively pursue them because I know that I can plug them into a little hole. But for the others to come to you, there's something magical in that. When people feel inspired enough to come to me and say, Sharon, what can I do? How can I help? To me, that is then job done, you know?
Well, I'm going to ask you that same question, because I really want to collaborate with you and I really want to do something with you, you know. And so the crazy thing is, you know, as I move about Port Elizabeth and, you know, I'm in and out of places and I start conversations. And when people find out what I do, they go like, oh, but you know about Sharon, this, and I kid you not, people start talking to me about you. And I'm like, yeah, I actually know her. And so it's amazing because you've touched so many groups, a variety, you know, like different groups of people. And so I think like the campaigns, you know, the cause that you've sort of like committed yourself to, and the campaigns that you guys have started have really reached into the hearts and minds of people, and not just in sort of like one bracket, you know. It's kind of like spread across the board, which is really lovely for me. Really lovely. Yeah. And I feel what I've also noticed is, you know, with awareness, like I feel most of the time when I go to like retailers, let's say I go shopping or I go buy whatever I need to get, you know, the people in stores don't know. They don't know.
Yes.
You know, all they know is retail, and all they know is what they will maybe listen when the president's talking. But the retail outlets and the malls aren't really doing much for awareness campaigns. And so I always said, like, my gosh, like we have to get these people to know, you know, because when you know and it's in your awareness, then you start taking note of what's happening in your environment, and then you really start seeing, oh, but I think maybe this person's up to something, or maybe that person is up to something, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, there's a huge untapped market there.
Yeah.
And another thing that I feel where we really need to focus is pester power of children. You know, imagine if you can reach the heart, and children are easily influenced, whether it's a good thing or whether it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So if we can focus on influencing them on becoming little environmental warriors, can you imagine? Because that child is going to go and pester the teacher, it's going to go and pester the parents, it's going to pester their friends and their aunties and their uncles. So I think there's a huge untapped little army out there that we need to focus on.
Yeah, and also, you know,
that is the power of children.
Yes, and so, you know, maybe the conversation looks like this with your child is, would you like to become a wildlife advocate? Would you like to become a wildlife lawyer? Like, would you like to, you know, like, what does that look like? Because when we grew up, and I'm saying we, but, you know, and so there was only sort of like a limited options that you could choose, right? And I didn't, as a young child, have the words. I just knew that I wanted a voice that was powerful and strong, and I could use it. And I remember when saying to Mom, I kind of want like a voice that's as strong as a mafia, you know. And she like looked at me, and you know, something like that. But I didn't have all the. It was from the you know, you watch the movies, so you don't really hear about the advocacy side of things. And so I kind of had to like discover all of this myself. But I know that I've always had a passion for wildlife and animals, you know, that's just something that's always been a part of me. And so my nickname Pocahontas does me justice. But there's a topic I want to discuss with you online today. You know, as much as we want to listen to the wind and we want to, you know, paint, you know, the colors of the wind, to legalize the rhino horn or trade, or to not legalize it. So that was a post that you had made on social media because it came up in a conversation online, you know, on some published article. And you know my thoughts on that as well. And so I kind of feel like we've also reached this point where enough with the talking, enough with the games, political games, enough with the buddy system in government and, you know, the buddy syndicate system, enough with taking pity on people. Okay, and so I'll probably get some comments when we publish this, but enough with taking, you know, pity on people. And I'm fully aware of, you know, the impoverished side of this. Okay, the recruitment side of this, the various levels that you get, 1, 0 to 5. And so I'm fully aware of that. I've watched all the documentaries, I've had the conversations, you know, but enough with that. Okay, we only have a handful of rhinos left with, like, you know, 7.9 billion people on the planet, and who knows how many after the trophy. And then today you'd send me a 1-year-old thing to watch, you know, also where the guy explains why the rhino horn should not be legalized, right? And so you watched that, and so based on his, what was his name? Colin
Bell.
Colin Bell, yeah. And so you know, so he lays it out.
Conservationists.
Yeah, and so he lays it out, and I'll also include that link, you know, when I do publish this. And so he lays it out nicely for us, and he explains why from his perspective. Okay, and also his work, basically, you know, he's dedicated his life to this, right? And so why that will never work. And I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
To be honest, my thoughts, as I've said previously, every fiber of my being screams out against it.
Yeah.
We cannot, under any circumstances, legalize the trade of rhino horn. Okay. Yeah. We know that legalizing it, and basically, as the advocates for the legalizing of trade says, it will drop the price and then there will be no need for poaching. We know that's BS.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We know that the minute you do that, and PROA, the Private Rhino Owners Association, which, by the way, are traders, they're not conservationists. Okay. Have fixed the price of rhino horn at about $10,000 per kilogram, which translates to about R1 million, okay, per horn. Now, the minute you put that commodity out there, and I hate to use that word because that's an animal with a soul.
Yes,
with
but that's how people view it. You know, that's how people view it. It is not a rhino, a sentient being to them. It is a commodity. It's a product.
Exactly. And we share the same sentiment there. So for the sake of the economics involved, I will use the name or the word commodity. The minute you put that out there, you increase the demand, which means the poaching will not stop. All right. It's not going to stop. No matter how you put things in place, checks and balances in place, and how difficult you make it to trade legally with rhino horn. We know, and it's based on real discussions and
data.
The specific word I'm looking for, not discussions, research that have been done by very respected conservationists that have proved to us time and time again that legalizing the trade in any animal part does not bring poaching under control. In fact, it has the opposite effect.
It has the opposite effect.
I did that post deliberately because I was inviting conversation. I wanted to see what the feeling of the public was out there.
Yeah.
And I'm dead against it.
Yeah. And so to people that are watching, and so also what Colin Bell mentions, he says, on paper, on social media, all these things look good and the wording looks good. But really, when you go and you do your research on, this species versus that species, the reproduction rate versus this,
Absolutely.
What they say in terms of like, you don't have to kill the rhino, you can just, dehorn. We don't have enough rhino on the planet to increase the demand. And more often, it's not just that they're after little bits of the horn, they're actually after the entire horn. And so if you cannot provide an entire horn as a trophy, then that's basically you've basically signed the contract saying, there you go, let's just extinct the species right now and get it over and done with. And a lot of people, when I say to them, oh, but do you know this? And, like I've got new information, because I always go back to some of my friends, just to find some sort of grounds. And then they say, well, you know what, let's just kill all of them now. Let's just kill all of them now. Then all of us can do something else. And then we don't have to worry about rhinos anymore. And for me, when I hear that, it makes me want to cry. It makes me want to cry. And so, I don't see animals as a commodity. I think really that something horrible has happened on this planet, where our relationship, human to non-human animal, is really distorted. And we've got all these clever little gray zones and gray pockets, be it spiritual reasons or religious reasons or political reasons, or kind of just, the general conditioning. It's tradition. Tradition can change. Times are changing, tradition can change, you can change.
Absolutely.
And so I think anybody, I used to be like, I don't want anybody to get hurt, and namaste to all, and and I don't want the poachers to get hurt. But the conversation has been dragging on so long And I feel like our governments haven't taken it serious. I also say that the not enough has been done because the right thing has not been done.
Absolutely.
If we really want this to succeed and to keep our numbers that we currently have, we need to take, we have to make radical decisions that will have quite radical approaches to certain things, and this buddy thing cannot work anymore, and we cannot have other sectors trade agreements based on our wildlife as a commodity, and so the give and take of I'll do you this favor isn't going to work in anybody's favor. And so I'm talking in circles really, but bottom line is what I want to say is that if they can execute a rhino, then they should be executed. And it may sound very harsh and very contradicting to our current beliefs, our spiritual beliefs, but really, I would hate to pick up the newspaper one day and say that we only have one rhino left in South Africa, or we only have one rhino left in Namibia, and we know that this has happened.
And you do know, Petro, that's about 5 years away.
Yeah.
5 years.
At the rate that it's going now.
Absolutely. And we can't stop this trajectory. We're facing a huge crisis.
And I've said this multiple times as well, that we have way too many human rights that get in the way of animal rights and protecting the species and doing what needs to be done. And so that's why I say not enough has been done, because the right thing has not been done. And so it sounds harsh, especially when we go, who are we to judge over you? But some of us, and this is where I get very spiritual, some of us have come to planet Earth, for the non-human animals. And so my stance on human has got to go backwards. Like, you take a step back, because this species, look at what we've done to this species. And so if we've done this to this species, then I'm sorry, we are at fault. And so we need to deal with our own kind, right? And so, and right after you had posted that, and I was very verbal online, and I said all these things, and I was like, the very next day, my gosh, I got into my car and I just had this heaviness. I woke up with this heaviness, and I was like, oh my God, this feels like the heaviness of humanity. this feels like the suffering of humanity. I'm just the day before that, I was like, I don't care, and and I'm not going to take pity on humans. And I was feeling this heaviness, right? And then I got to PE, and I parked my car outside my friend's house, and there was this vagrant walking past, and I could hear him cry from the stop street, and I was like, wow, what is happening, right? And so that was a confirmation for me that people are struggling and suffering, but I always go back to, is that a distraction, and who really are the ones that are suffering, and what are the numbers? Because the numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. The only thing on this planet that lies are humans. And so those that stand to profit off of the trade, will the communities ever see that money? Will that money ever go into conservation? Will they be able to uphold their word and show us that they've got integrity? And I doubt that they will.
Now, I think we know the answers to those, don't we? I mean, there's one short answer that can answer all of the above, and that is no. Because we do have, unfortunately, here in South Africa, a very corrupt government. And I'm not going to pull punches here. We do know that the private rhino Owners Association is not in it for the animals, they're in it for their own personal gain. So already here you have oil and you have fire, and we're going to have an explosion. Yes. And I just feel that our legislation is very sad. All right. Our judicial system completely broken down. I mean, you also sent me, and I was actually aware of that. The other link that you sent me with a guy that was out on bail for 10 years and then committed a similar crime. All right. So we know that these criminals, because they are criminals, are being protected. And then you have the guys like, can I mention the name? John Hume, who owns about 2,000 rhinos, and he's breeding them in captivity, dehorning them, and we know he's got a massive stash of rhinos, and he sold quite a huge amount of rhino horn to I think it was a John Melville from
I think Colin mentioned like 250. Was it 250 horns?
It was a huge
I read
amount
something
of
briefly. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think we can safely say that those guys are not in it for the protection of the rhino. They really could not care less. The only reason why those rhinos have not been touched is because they have the money to protect them properly, and they're in on everything.
And so
a whole lot of things have to change, and they've got to change quickly. And I'm concerned because, you know, the CITES, they only sit every, I think, 3 to 4 years. We don't have another 3 years that we can wait to have these things implemented. We need to do something, and we need to do that
now,
like 5 years ago.
yeah, we need to do it now, and we need to stop playing games. And I think, you know, I really feel, and I hope that I don't get into trouble with this, but if I do, then so be it. You know, then I'm gonna just call on you to come and bail me out. But we
absolutely
really need to come together as people and demand investigations into certain departments within our government.
Yes.
And leave no page unturned. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? And some of these people that are sitting at the head of these departments are making decisions, not only amending and regulating without, you know, the proper informing the public, but you know, they continue to do what they want. And it shows to me that if your name comes up multiple times within the tabloids, that you are a part of something, and therefore, you know, what is it that you're really up to? Because my goodness, Sharon, if I was, you know, the head of Duffy, there would be, I promise you, okay, half of the nonsense would not be okayed by me. It will just not.
Absolutely.
Right, you would have to literally kill me, okay, for me to okay some of those things. And so I'm just wondering, you know, where does that shift take place, and who creates that shift? Because people in South Africa have got to wake up. I know that I mentioned online, you know, because there's a lot of, oh, the Chinese this and the Asians this. No, it's happening on our yard. It's happening on our grounds, in our backyard.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, we are the ones signing the
our
agreements
house first.
Yeah, and so we are the ones signing the agreements. We are the ones turning the other way. We're the ones saying, oh, shame, you know. And so, and I have family that go like that. Oh, shame, you know, and it drives me nuts. Okay, because oh, shame is not going to put $1 million into somebody's bank account. Oh, shame is not going to rescue that baby rhino who's now in the wild on her own, okay, because, you know, the mom has been poached, or the dad has been poached, you know, or like, you know, the rest of her family has been poached. And so, oh, shame doesn't work. Pity on humans don't work. And so what will work, you know? And I know, and I've said this to you before, you know, you were a public prosecutor, you know the evil that's out there. You have stared into the souls of the people who have done atrocious things. And for me, whether it be a rhino animal or a human animal, there's no difference. The only difference is that the one is innocent, and the other one is like this invasive species on the planet, literally taking and taking and taking and taking.
Absolutely.
And you know, somebody said to me in the week, and I'm talking quite about, somebody said to me in the week that you know, the conservation has been the hardest job that he has had in over 40 years. Okay, conservation. And it's not supposed to be that difficult, is it?
Absolutely. I totally agree. I totally agree.
You know, we were all children once, and we were all at a time looking at it like a little baby chick or a little cat or a dog, and you know, those were our best friends. And maybe we were afraid of spiders. I am, and I'm so afraid of crocodiles. And so Like maybe we were afraid, or so we harmed that ant because we didn't understand, and so, but really in the end of the day, we are sitting with a problem, and the problem is, it's our problem. It's a human problem. And so how do we fix that? And I've said this before, like I'm a big believer in having the death sentence reinstalled, and for them to bring that back. And so, because I feel like we're just out of hand. We're just out of hand. And so spiritual or not, religious or not, we are sitting with a society that is sicker than sick, and people that are acting out and literally harming what is left of nature and of wildlife, and no amount of praying is going to stop them. No amount of this or that is going to stop them. We need to become harsher, because there is a war, and that war, we are at war with rhino. And why, I don't know. I mean, like,
absolutely,
it's
absolutely,
like,
yes,
it's crazy.
There's this massive war that we're fighting here, massive war.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I see a whole lot of things happening concurrently. We definitely need to lobby to bring the death penalty back.
And so,
I'm on board with that. We definitely need to lobby.
Yes,
to
and so I think
animals' rights.
Yes, and so I think that we need to litigate, and just for anybody that doesn't know, just to go to court, just to open the doors can cost you 2 million, just to start. And so it's something that I kind of, it will always feel like it's this endless battle that we will never get somewhere. But everybody that started something great felt that, worked through it, got to a milestone and a milestone and a milestone. And so nobody ever promised us that it would be easy. But I'm thinking that maybe the two of us must write to Sadhguru and have a conversation with him, a global
I've had the same thoughts.
Yeah, and we should have a conversation with him, and perhaps even invite him over, to South Africa. We can all walk. We don't have to run, we can walk.
We can walk. We can,
but because I know, as that we want to see people thrive, and we want to see wildlife thrive. But when we look, and for me, when I look at a rhino that's just been poached and she's had an infant, for me, that is like, I'm sorry, like I will not let that person live in the end of the day. And no amount of spiritual teaching can convince me that that person should still remain on the planet. And so, as judgmental as that sounds, a life for a life, are we really going to let our spiritual teachings and our spiritual beliefs come in between us actually taking a stance totally, completely, fully, existentially with rhinos?
Absolutely.
I mean, should I stop talking?
No. Because I'm so on board. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and so I kind of feel like,
realizing everything that I've thought of in the last sort of, basically since December, when we had that massive murdering of 23 rhinos in 36 hours. 36 hours.
Yeah. And that for me, was a clear indication that they will never ever be able to regulate this. That those that have acquired their property, because people don't buy rhino because of the animal. You buy the horn. You pay for the horn. That's what you're buying. Or you're buying a dame, and you're gonna basically breed with her. And so, let's not pretend. Let's just kind of remove whatever we've got over our eyes and call a spade a spade. And so, when we talk about John Humes, I've actually had a conversation with John Humes, many years ago. And so he had put something out, he was struggling, and he was kind of looking for the new custodians, and so I figured, well, it's worth having a conversation with him.
Yes.
But in the world of rhino and human, I almost wanted to say rhino and men. In the world of rhino and human, we are still sitting with prehistoric, hereditary, conditioned beliefs around animals and our relation to them. And so for me, people fight with me. My gosh, do they fight with me? You know, I will never ever condone the selling of a rhino horn. For me, that is creation at its best, and they deserve to be in the wild, free and wild, with their natural, in their natural state. And so for me, that I can never say yes to that, you know. And also after seeing what I've seen and getting the visions, and this might sound cuckoo to people, but after having received the visions that I'd received, there is no ways that I can unsee what I've seen, and there's no ways that I will ever give that horn away. I just won't. And I think people have got to really, you know, ask themselves, are they being greenwashed, whitewashed, you know, conservation washed, you know, are they being washed? Are they being blinded, you know? And I'm just wondering, you know, and I'm going to actually ask this, like, I'm wondering who's sitting in their homes or behind their desks, who's had ideas, who's never come out with it, you know, who's had a suggestion, but who's never found somebody to speak to in terms of like what they think should be done for wildlife, you know. I mean, however crazy it might seem, right? I mean, I've had absurd. I mean, like if I had all the money in the world, like you would not get close to a rhino. You would not. Like you would be 6 feet, you would be 18 feet under. Okay.
Oh, yes.
And so the ideas are never too much. And
and people must also not think that any idea is too small to implement, you know. Just like you, I would love to start these conversations. Let's talk about this. Let's exchange ideas. And then let's start implementing. Let's start doing something.
Yes. And so Sharon, so I mean, like you've got plans for 2022, and I'm sure 2023 and 2024 until, you know, like, you know, you can't run anymore, and then you're probably going to be like, you know, with your walking stick and that. But like I asked this to Jason McNamara this morning as well, like if you could leave a message, you know, behind, or a teaching behind for humanity, you know, that they can kind of carry with them as they continue their existence on the planet, you know, like what would that be? What would you want, you know, current generations and future generations to know and live by?
Honor yourself enough to look after our planet and all its creatures. Don't be selfish, because this planet does not belong to us. We are here, very temporary. The planet will continue existing, but let's do our part. And then my last parting shot is, remember, we have joint custody as a human species to make this planet the best that it can be. And don't be selfish.
Don't be selfish,
you know,
right?
Don't be selfish.
Like
it's not about you. If you look at a human on planet Earth or a human in the universe, we are not even the size of a speck of sand. So why do we feel as humans that we have the right to just take and take and take? You know, these animals do not belong to us. They don't. So respect and honor.
Respect and honor. I mean, it's like the two most important, I think, values, right? Values that you could have and hold for yourself, and also, you know, to extend that to our fellow earthlings and the water, the air, the soil, the planet.
Absolutely.
And so Sharon, you know, where can people find you?
Very easy. Run Wild For Rhinos on Facebook.
Okay.
And I think that's probably the easiest way. The website, sharonjessop.co.za.
Yes, and so I'll put
all my contact details are on there.
And do you have, because I haven't done much, you know, so we're going to talk about the courses now, but do you have products on there that you're selling? Like, are there little gifts and stuff that people can sort of buy to support you in the journey?
Not yet.
Okay. That's also something that I've planned for this year.
Yes, that
Yeah.
is high on my agenda for this year. So I'm actually changing or drawing the community, the Run Wild for Rhinos community in terms of I'm starting up a Run Wild for Rhinos club, which is not a running club. So don't stress, don't panic. You can do anything. Like the one lady actually contacted me and she said, I really want to be part of this club, but I don't run. I said, don't worry. We will have athletes that you can sponsor per kilometer for running, swimming, cycling, dancing.
Can we include hula hooping? We should include hula hooping.
We can include anything, all
amazing.
fun stuff, skateboarding, And those who don't want to run can then adopt the athlete, and every single cent raised will go to rhino conservation.
That's amazing. And so what are your current projects? I mean, that's one project now that you've mentioned. And so what else have you got planned for this year?
So my big one,
yes,
definitely to get into schools. That will be part of the Run Wild for Rhinos Club. And as I said, we need to lobby and tap into and use this force called pester power. But then so that's the other thing, do awareness talks. And I want to encourage, and this is something that always really grates me when people say to me, oh, but I can't go to a game reserve, I can't go on a game drive because it's too expensive. Have you got any idea how much it costs just to protect these animals? So let's support our game reserves. Let's go and look at the rhinos. The sad thing for me, if you look at the community around the Addo Elephant Park, those kids live right on the border. They can see from their little rugby field that they can see the fence, but they've never seen a live rhino. We need to change that. I know it's mind-blowing, hey? Mind-blowing.
I know Lloyd from Reggae Charters, he also believes that, when you can bring the children and introduce them to the wildlife, that's already a closer connection, because how many of them actually get the opportunity to do that, right? And so absolutely. I was very privileged as a child. I mean, gosh, and I'm still privileged, because but I also create the opportunity for myself, I actually create it. I don't just sit. I mean, it's super uncomfortable most of the time, the situations that I get myself in, but then you have the reward. So it's hard work, and people think you're crazy, and so the ideas are way out there. And I've got this friend who said to me, "But your ideas are so far ahead of people, and then I go, oh, but can we do it? And he's like, I don't think it will happen now, and then I'm like, okay, but can we do something about it? And so, and I think on that note, I know, whether it's a little note that you write and you leave it on somebody's desk, whether it is something that you put in your car window, whether it is a Facebook photo profile or a banner, whether it is a conversation that you have with your mother, your grandmother, the woman that does your nails, the person that serves you over the counter, doesn't matter. For us to be active, we need to be active. For people to know, they need to know, and they cannot know if we don't talk about it. It's a conversation. Absolutely. And so I have now become aware of some people that have done some really sort of out there stuff, like a guy who advocates for the planet and sort of the rainforest. And so he's got half a beard, literally his one face is like a beard. And then the rest, and then they went quite epic, they shaved off the half of his head and stuff like that. So it's quite epic, but all of that is conversation starters that ultimately lead us to creating awareness. And above all and beyond the talking and beyond the message and beyond the everything is find the organizations that are legit, that are ethical, that are doing the work, and support them. 20 rand, 50 rand a month, 50 rand a month, maybe even more. If you have more, please give more, adopt a rhino, become a custodian. Whatever you do, is do not exploit them and do not trade them, and don't wear blindfolds and ignore who is in and around your community who are doing stuff that they're not supposed to be doing. And I want to mention one thing, Sharon, before we say goodbye, okay? And also, Nikki, I'm coming for you. We're going to have a interview as well, you know, and we'll get Sharon also on board, and maybe I can have the two of you also present for that call. But whether it is poaching of cycads or poaching of succulents, or the poaching of abalone, or the poaching of rhino, whether it's the arms trade, these are syndicates that are doing the same syndicates that are doing all of this, the same syndicates.
Absolutely.
Okay. And they are doing it in your neighborhood. They are your friends. They are people that you know. They are people that you see and speak to, and you think that they are innocent. And I feel that if we had to tap into the deepest knowing of ourselves and really make a conscious choice to side with the earth and the animals that we love, the species that we love, that you will be given the guidance, and you will see, like you will, like I saw, like you will start seeing, you know, what goes on. And yeah, but
Absolutely.
support the organizations and talk about it, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
so Sharon, like, where can people donate when it comes to your cause? Like, where can they donate?
There's actually on my website a big donate button on every single page. So very easy. You go into sharonjessop.co.za, hit the donate button, and every single cent donated goes to rhino conservation.
Amazing.
There's also quite a few of my favorite causes listed there, of which Ollie is one of them, obviously. So people can also donate directly to Ollie, because all the funds I raise go to Ollie in any event.
Yeah.
You know, the One Land Love It Foundation, because we do a lot of good work. We do a lot of rhino collarings. We buy milk formula for the Care for Wild
It's
Rhino
expensive.
Sanctuary.
The milk is expensive. I know that.
It's
Very expensive.
extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And you know, baby rhinos drink between 16 and 20 liters of milk every single day for 2 years.
And that's how much their stomachs can take, you know, so 16 liters at a time. And yeah, no, and they love to drink. My gosh, you know, you have that bottle and like, and just more, and they want more.
Done in no time.
Yeah, you know, but they are the cutest, most beautiful, like incredible beings.
Absolutely.
To be in the presence of a rhino calf is like, and I get tears too, is like the most precious gift ever, you know, and to be in the presence of bigger rhinos is like, even, it's like, wow, right? Like, how can we not protect them? And so I want to really urge people to get in contact with Sharon, you know, move from caring to doing, get in contact with Ollie, One Land, Love It. And so, you know, all the links will be below. You can send me all the information. We'll add that. And really ask the questions that will put you in a position to do more. And so nobody can inspire you. She is here as a unicorn, you know, shining the light on the issue. But really, you've got to inspire yourself, or you can be inspired, but it comes from deep within us. And if you are somebody that believes that you can do it, then do it. And here's an organization that can actually assist you in moving from caring to doing. And so getting you also into maybe that next cycle of your life, and really standing up for what you believe in, and really following your purpose, you know. And so if you were meant to do this, then do it, right? Then do it. Anything else? Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I think just want to reiterate, you know, as you said, just do it. JDI, just do it. You know, if you feel it in your heart, and everybody should, get up close and personal with a rhino. Go and see the rhinos in the game reserves. Fall in love with them, and then let's save them.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, and so with that, ladies and gents, this was a Sharon Jessop, conservationist, adrenaline junkie, you know, public speaker. She's got her own TV show as well. She travels, she moves about. She is the person to speak to if you want to move from caring to doing. And I know that I want to move even into more of what I'm doing and get more active. And I really want to put a little mermaid tail on Ollie. And so, Nikki, I'm coming for you. When she listens to this, I am coming for that replica of yours. And so I want to take the conversation into the waters, for our land animals. And I want to take the conversation on land for our ocean. And so I really want to do this quantum jump, where we are using one species to represent another, and then basically just pulling it all in and getting the work done. And so, yeah, thank you guys, and thank you, Sharon. And we're gonna have something at the Kindred Kitchen. I'm just throwing that in there as well. The Kindred Kitchen is a vegan restaurant in Port Elizabeth, and so that's also people that I want to have an interview with. And so I think maybe why don't we just go there, sit down, brainstorm when you have a chance, and do something really incredible.
That'd be amazing.
Okay.
As always.
Good. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to thank you so very much, and I hope to see you soon. Okay. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye.
Be kind to the animals, guys. Okay. Bye.